German factory workers are afraid of Chinese electric vehicles, and, well, Chinese delivery workers are afraid of Chinese robots.
Yeah, it is quite the contrast.
Right. On the surface, I mean, these look like two totally different stories from two totally different industries. But in reality, they're facing the exact same thing. It is this massive, relentless efficiency machine that is basically rewriting the price of labor everywhere.
Exactly. I was actually just looking at that fascinating juxtaposition in the Financial Times this morning, because on one page you have these reports of huge cost-cutting and massive layoff pressures at major German automakers.
Which is wild to think about.
Right. And then you literally turn the page and you see the CEO of JD.com, one of China's biggest e-commerce platforms. And he's stating that robots will, quote, sooner or later replace a massive number of their delivery jobs.
And we're talking about a company with roughly 700,000 delivery personnel.
Yeah, it's huge.
That is just a staggering number of human beings. And, at first glance, a car factory in Europe and a delivery route in Asia seem miles apart. But really, it's the exact same story.
It totally is. I mean, it represents a complete structural change in just how the world works, because the old story of globalization used to be very simple, right?
Absolutely.
Western brands hold the profits, and China provides the cheap labor. But that script is dead. Today, Chinese tech and manufacturing efficiency is, spilling over globally, but it is also flowing right back into its own domestic labor market.
Yeah, and that brings up a really good point for our audience.
Yeah.
Have you noticed that when we talk about a cheaper product, we usually think about cheap labor, but we rarely think about the entirely new survival system behind it?
That is such a crucial distinction.
Right. So today, we're going to look at that system in this deep dive. We're going to explore how we went from an era of just labor competition to a totally new era of system competition.
And to really understand how powerful this system is, we need to look at what's happening to the German auto industry right now. Because for decades, their whole advantage was built on a very specific foundation.
Like the engineering side of things.
Exactly. You paid a brand premium for a German car because it represented incredible mechanical engineering. If you think about a traditional combustion engine, it has thousands of moving parts.
Yeah, it's basically like a giant, heavy Swiss watch.
That is the perfect way to describe it. And building that giant Swiss watch requires a highly skilled, highly unionized, and very well-paid workforce.
And it was an absolute institution over there. Entire towns in Germany are built around these factories. The local bakery, the schools, the local tax base, they all rely on those wages from those complex mechanical engineering jobs.
Which is exactly why the current situation is so disruptive. The Financial Times reporting really details how these legacy automakers are caught in this vicious squeeze.
Oh, the squeeze is real.
Yeah, because in the Chinese market, which, used to be their biggest source of profits by far, they are rapidly losing ground to local Chinese electric vehicle brands.
Right.
And now those exact same Chinese EV brands are showing up in Europe, offering intense price competition right in Germany's backyard.
Well, I've heard the shift from traditional cars to EVs described as a change in the fundamental nature of the product itself. Like we said, the German automakers are master watchmakers. They're refining these traditional strategies, perfecting the mechanical tuning of their gears. But suddenly the Chinese EV makers walk in, and they aren't making watches at all. They're making smartphones on wheels.
Smartphones on wheels. Yes, that is a critical distinction, because a smartphone on wheels doesn't compete on mechanical perfection. It competes on batteries, on software, and on rapid iteration.
Right, because you can update a car's software overnight.
Exactly. You cannot update a physical engine block overnight. But the thing is, the German workers aren't just losing to a faster product design. They're facing a highly integrated supply chain.
So let's break down what highly integrated actually means in this context, because I feel like it's the secret to this whole efficiency machine.
It really is. It basically means controlling the entire process from start to finish. We are talking about companies that don't just assemble cars. They literally have stakes in the lithium mines.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they process the raw materials themselves. They manufacture their own battery cells, which is
the most expensive part of an EV, right?
Exactly, the most expensive part. And they develop their own software. This whole system of extreme cost control, it was forged in a brutal, highly competitive domestic market in China.
Right, the EV price wars over there.
Yeah, over the last few years, dozens of EV startups in China fought a massive price war. And the ones that survived that bloodbath are incredibly lean.
So when that lean vertical system gets exported to Europe, it hits like a tidal wave. because the German automakers, they have high local manufacturing costs. They have these complex supply chains scattered all across different suppliers, and they've honestly been pretty slow to transition away from the combustion engine.
Yeah.
Very slow.
So they're basically carrying all the heavy costs of the old era while just trying to survive in the new one.
And, the human cost of that transition is profound.
Yeah.
For a German auto worker, losing a job isn't just about missing a few paychecks.
No, not at all.
It means losing middle-class stability. These jobs come with strong union protection and really high wages. So when these workers look at this global shift, they don't just see a new competitor offering a cheaper car. They see a direct threat to the industrial order that literally built their lives.
Yeah. Have you ever thought about how an entire community's identity can be tied to just a single piece of technology? Because when the internal combustion engine goes away, the foundation of that community shakes.
It really does.
And that is exactly what is happening in Europe. But here is the twist. That same relentless cost-cutting and efficiency that's keeping German executives awake at night, it's not just an export product. It's being deployed against the very workforce that built it back in China. That is the crazy part. The same logic applies regardless of borders. The system just seeks efficiency everywhere. And that brings us right to that FT report about JD.com and the domestic labor squeeze.
Right. Going back to those 700,000 workers.
Yeah. Managing 700,000 human delivery workers is a massive ongoing cost for them. So JD's leadership has publicly stated their goal is to have robots and automated systems eventually take over a vast number of these delivery routes.
But the corporate narrative here is interesting, because the story the company tells the public and the workers is actually framed as a job upgrade.
Oh, right, the upgrade.
Yeah, they suggest that as robots take over the actual physical act of carrying the packages, the human workers can simply transition to new, supposedly better roles, like robot maintenance.
Well, the problem with that narrative becomes glaringly obvious when you analyze the reality of the labor market. Just think about what a delivery job actually requires on a daily basis.
It's grueling.
It is extreme physical stamina. It requires an intimate knowledge of local streets, knowing which apartment building has a broken elevator or knowing exactly where to hide a package if the customer isn't home.
Yeah, navigating bad weather, managing strict delivery time limits.
Yeah.
It's real-world problem solving.
Exactly. Real-world physical problem solving. Now consider the daily requirements of robot maintenance.
Total opposite.
Completely. That job requires an understanding of electrical engineering. It requires software troubleshooting. It requires systems management and digital diagnostics. The skill sets simply do not overlap at all.
Well, wait, let me push back on this for a second, because history tells us that technology always creates new jobs, right? I mean, we aren't all unemployed today just because the tractor was invented and replaced manual farming.
Right, the classic tractor argument.
Yeah, when the tractor came along, it destroyed old farming jobs. But people eventually got jobs in factories, or maybe they got jobs fixing the tractors. So why is this AI and robot wave any different?
It's a popular analogy, but it honestly fails on a mechanical level.
Yeah.
A tractor replaced physical muscle. It allowed one human to do the physical lifting of 50 humans. But these new algorithms and robots, they're replacing cognitive scheduling, navigation, and standardized decision-making.
Ah, I see.
And even if we look at the historical tractor example, the farmer who lost his job didn't instantly become a tractor mechanic the very next morning. There was massive generational displacement.
So it's basically a mashing problem. The new jobs being created just don't fit the people who are losing the old jobs.
Precisely. A delivery driver can't bridge that massive skill gap with a quick weekend training session. I mean, there are deep educational barriers.
And age factors too, I imagine.
Totally. A 45-year-old driver with a family probably doesn't have the time or the resources to go back to a university to study software management. And there is the immediate reality of lost income. While you are supposedly training for this hypothetical upgraded job, how do you pay your rent?
Right. So for everyone listening, when you hear a company say an AI or robot will upgrade your role, do you think that's a promise of a better job or just a polite way of saying you're on your own?
Yeah, it's a tough question.
It really feels like the burden of adaptation is being placed entirely on the individual worker, while the company just reaps all the benefits of the cheaper robotic labor.
The enterprise gets an upgraded, highly efficient logistics system, and the individual worker gets a sudden break in their livelihood. And JD.com is just one example here. We are seeing similar automation pressures across ride-hailing apps, automated warehouses, traditional assembly lines, all over China.
So we have to ask the big question then, why now? Like, why are Chinese platform companies and manufacturers pushing automation so aggressively at this exact moment in history? Is it just to show off cool technology?
Not at all.
Because historically, China's greatest economic advantage was its massive, affordable workforce.
Right. And to understand the deeper logic there, we need to look at the FT Big Read report, which dives into the demographic push behind this entire national strategy, because China is currently facing two massive demographic shifts simultaneously.
Okay, what are they?
First, a shrinking working age population, and second, a rapidly aging society overall.
So that demographic dividend, that endless supply of young, cheap labor that fueled the whole old globalization model, that's basically ending.
It is ending, and it is also changing culturally. The FT notes that young people today are increasingly unwilling to take low-paying, high-intensity, repetitive jobs.
Right, we've seen those movements like lying flat gain a lot of traction online over there.
Exactly. Young workers just don't want to stand on an assembly line for 12 hours assembling electronics anymore, and they're becoming totally exhausted by the grueling, algorithm-driven pace of gig economy delivery work. So because fewer young people are willing to do these jobs, the labor supply tightens.
And when labor supply tightens, wages naturally go up. Which means the old model of just throwing more cheap human labor at a problem to keep costs down doesn't work anymore. The math is completely broken.
Exactly. And this is where we see a fascinating alignment of motives between the state and the corporations, even if they actually want robots for entirely different reasons.
How do you mean?
Well, from the perspective of the government, automation is a necessary tool for national survival. If the working age population is shrinking, the only way to buffer that demographic shift and keep manufacturing costs low enough to compete globally.
Like defeating those German automakers.
The only way to do that is to automate the factories. For the state, it is all about national industrial strategy and maintaining global dominance in sectors like EVs and green tech.
Okay, that makes total sense for the national strategy. But what about the platform companies? The e-commerce giants, the ride-hailing apps, the food delivery services, they don't care about global auto exports. They just care about their daily domestic operations.
For platform companies, the motivation is much more immediate and financial. Managing hundreds of thousands of human beings is incredibly expensive, it's complex, and it's unpredictable.
Because humans are human.
Right. Humans get tired, they get sick, they demand better working conditions, they form social bonds and complain. Robots, on the other hand, offer a clean, predictable balance sheet.
And they work 247.
Exactly. Furthermore, replacing human logistics with an automated fleet provides a very attractive tech growth story for investors. It's a great way to raise capital and boost stock prices by showing you are fundamentally cutting long-term management costs.
Wow. So the state needs automation to survive a demographic crisis, and the companies need automation to satisfy investors and eliminate the friction of human management.
That's the dynamic, yeah.
But where does that leave the workers? I mean, one of the most surprising takeaways from our sources is about which jobs are actually the most vulnerable to this shift.
Yeah, this is key. We often assume that the hardest, most physical demanding jobs will be automated first. Like if a job breaks your back, a robot should do it. But the data shows something completely different. The vulnerability of a job isn't about physical sweat at all. It's about sequence.
It's the standardized jobs, the ones that happen the exact same way every single time.
If your job can be easily broken down into predictable steps, you are in the danger zone. Just think about how an algorithm currently manages a human delivery driver. The GPS tracks the exact route. The app measures how many seconds it takes to drop the package at the door.
Yeah, the system knows the dwell time, the driving speed, the success rate.
Right. The algorithm has already mapped the human's day into a mathematical formula.
And once a job is a mathematical formula, a machine can execute it.
Precisely. The algorithm is constantly measuring the cost of a human doing that standardized task versus a machine doing it. As the technology improves, the cost of the machine comes down. And the exact moment the machine's cost drops below the human's wage, the human's bargaining power completely disappears.
Yeah.
Anything that can be easily measured and managed by code, whether it's package sorting, driving from point A to point B, or basic customer service, that is first in line for replacement.
It's funny. Have you noticed that the real change here is not the physical robot itself, but how algorithms are fundamentally recalculating the value of human time?
That is the core mechanism. It strips away the human element entirely and turns labor into pure data. And honestly, this brings us right back to our opening idea.
Right.
We've looked at the German auto worker whose high-paying middle-class job is threatened because Chinese companies have built a faster, cheaper, more efficient, vertically integrated manufacturing system.
And we've looked at the Chinese delivery driver whose livelihood is threatened because their own company wants to apply that exact same efficiency logic domestically, just replacing them with a predictable machine.
It really highlights the grand transition we are all living through. We are moving away from a world defined by labor competition, where countries compete based on who has the cheapest or most skilled human workers. And we are entering a world of system and automation competition. The ultimate winner in the global market is the entity that can build the most efficient, least human-dependent supply chain and logistics network.
But there is a massive, uncomfortable contradiction at the heart of this transition. I mean, the efficiency dividend, the reward for all this tech and automation is incredibly obvious. The companies get higher profit margins and better stock valuations.
Yeah.
The country gets an industrial upgrade and stays globally competitive despite an aging population. And you, the consumer, get cheaper cars, faster deliveries, and just more convenience.
But the benefits are highly concentrated at the corporate top and then broadly distributed to the everyday consumer. The transition costs, though, the sudden unemployment, the desperate need for retraining, the loss of bargaining power, the stress of falling out of the middle class, those costs are scattered entirely onto individual workers.
Yeah.
Society as a whole is reaping the rewards of automation, but the individual is left paying the price of the disruption.
The system gets upgraded, but the person gets left behind. We started this deep dive by talking about two totally different worlds, the European factory and the Asian delivery route. But it turns out they're reading from the exact same script.
They really are.
The fate of the German auto worker today might not just be a victory for Chinese manufacturing. It might actually be a movie trailer for the future of all traditional jobs, everywhere. So if we only cheer for who wins the industrial race, but ignore who pays the price of the transition, well, are we missing half the story? Think about how automation is creeping into your own industry. Who holds the efficiency dividend there?